Oh, we are. Oh.
Are we ready?
Are you ready?
Yes. I call this meeting to order. First thing on our agenda today is to approve the minutes of April 1st, 2019. I looked at them and didn't see anything askew, but did anyone else see anything that needed to be amended or changed?
I read through them and they looked fine to me.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve said minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted from April 1st.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, state aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and HLPC members for allowing a called meeting. And we do these periodically when there's someone that has a request that we kind of slip through, and the applicant appeals to the chairman. Chairman has the ability to call special meetings, so that's why you're gathered back again just a short time after our last meeting.
You missed us, right?
Yes, ma'am. So this is case number COA 2019-008. The applicant is James for 411 East Main Street. And the request is for 2 signs. I will describe them to you and also give you the preface that that is not to scale. You know, that's why it says big on the side, not to scale. Because oftentimes we are just left with, we want a 4x8 sign, but we don't have the measurements, and so we just kind of plug it in so that you have an idea of where it goes, not how it looks. So remember that as we go through this case. That is where, but not the look of the sign. So the applicant is requesting to install a rectangular metal sign measuring approximately 4 feet tall by 8 feet wide, using brackets mounted on the top of the awning towards the edge of the awning towards the street, not against the building. Also requesting to install a rectangular metal sign measuring approximately 1 foot tall by 3.5 feet wide, using screws mounted to existing wood. There are transom windows there that are covered by wood, and so the proposed sign would be attached to the wood, which is covering the transoms. Both signs would be facing the street. Oftentimes you see a shingle sign or an awning sign which faces, you know, perpendicular to the building, and then one that's parallel to the building. Both of these are, I almost said flush mounted, but they're not. One is flush mounted and one is on the awning. And so this is the building as it sits today. And we're looking at the red half of the building, the lower red half of the building, because there's 2 businesses in that same address. There's your reference point. And then that's a close-up so you can see the transoms are covered on the red and uncovered on the, is that black? Blue? Dark. The dark color.
Dark color.
It's gray.
That's gray, okay. With the shadows, I wasn't sure what that is on the bottom. And then that is, like I said, that is not to scale. We did ask the applicant to try to measure the span between those 2 brackets so that you get a feel for this bracket to this bracket. And right before the meeting, he said that it was approximately 12 feet. So obviously that 8 foot wide that we have in there is larger than 8 feet if it's 12 from bracket to bracket. But, so Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is here as well. Oh, one additional note, the drawing that you're looking at there on the bottom of your page, that's what was provided by the applicant.
Okay. I do have a question. I know that when we can, we do try to fit the architectural features, and I do realize that there's 2 separate stores there, and so of course the signage needs to be above the store on the left. However, I was just curious as to if any thought was given to setting it into the brick rectangle, the architectural detail above. Just curious.
That was, I'm actually glad you asked, because oftentimes what we do is we sit down with the applicants ahead of time and say, here are the types of questions you're probably going to be asked. And that was one of the very questions that I phrased
good.
was, you should probably be prepared for a question such as what you just stated. So I don't have the answer for you, but the applicant probably does have a prepared answer. And Chairman, if you, sorry for interrupting, but we did include this sign here, different style of sign, but that's a sign that is mounted on the edge of the awning, just so that you have a better idea. That's the Ed and Gwen Cole Art Center. but that's not mounted on the building, that's mounted on the front of the awning, which is
The front
what,
of it.
what the applicant is proposing to do with
Go
the.
back to that one again, I'm
Yeah,
trying to,
I
wish
know,
you could
it was
blow it
very
up.
hard to see.
So.
Yeah, I can see it in the right.
This right here,
Oh, yeah, no, I see it.
those
Oh.
letters are mounted on the front of the
Oh.
awning. And so we
Gotcha.
wanted to give you that depth perception, so you had a, oops, sorry, did I do something?
I was gonna try to zoom in.
Oh, okay.
Oh, now I can see it. I thought it was on the one on the far right. That's the main, that's the street sign.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
yes,
the
yes,
street
I can see it. Yeah, should be familiar with that.
Thank you, Hannah.
So there, sorry, I forgot that we had included that picture just so you had a better idea of what that sign, where that sign would be mounted. But to go back to your question, the applicant would have to answer that one about fitting a sign within the brickwork.
And this one is at the rear of the awning, correct?
No, ma'am.
No,
His
it's at the front of the awning.
His proposal, and that's what triggered that, was I forgot that,
Oh, okay.
he is wanting to mount it
See,
on the
now
front edge of the awning.
I was perceiving that totally different.
It's real hard in a two-dimensional picture like this to give you that feel. And so I give credit to Hannah for saying, hey, let's go take a picture of this
Right.
one that's existing.
Okay. Thank you. If we could have the applicant state your name for the record, please.
My name is James Harley Schnell.
And, yes, that's, I don't know why, but I was thinking that it was going to be against that brickwork, and so I was wondering why.
And
you
that's why we
didn't
wanted to
fit
put it out to the
inside.
edge of the awning, because we didn't want to put any more screw holes that are already there into the architecture behind it. We didn't want to do any damage to the building nor, we're covering it up, but
Right.
didn't want to cover it up.
Right.
That way, if they're driving by from Mountain Street forward, they can still see the architecture, from the street. See, the problem we're having is the sign that I have in the window there, it can't be seen from passerbys when they're driving by. So we're wanting something bigger, as across the street we have another jewelry store, Reese. They do have a bigger sign above their awning, but it is affixed to the building.
Right.
And so, me personally, that's what we were wanting to do there, just to get, bam, we're here. And you can't see my sign in the window because people park in front of the store, it's covered up by other cars. And so, that just was the best next option.
Okay.
Do we have some questions? Go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
so your drawing, what you're proposing, is it a solid sign or not?
It is, yes, it is a solid sign. It's roughly, I would say, 5 millimeters thick.
Okay.
And then, of course, there'll be brackets attached to it that would affix back towards this way to keep it upright.
All right. I guess I'm just gonna come out and say, my concern is, we're talking a solid sign, so we're not talking about something equivalent to the Cole Arts Center.
Right.
Right.
So, I
You wouldn't be able to
understand
see through it.
You can't see through it, which means your whole argument about blocking the view.
And that's what I was saying.
is wrong.
We didn't want to block it as in attaching it, but
But-
again, I see what you're getting at
It's-
there.
It's gonna.
My next proposal is not put one there at all, and possibly moving it to the east side of the building,
Mhm.
facing the parking lot.
Perpendicular.
Right. That way, when you're driving up, you actually see our sign on the side of the building. Mr. Randy next door, talked to him about it. He didn't seem to mind something like that because he's not there as much as we are.
Right.
And that's another reason why we have a red and a gray, so people are walking in his store looking for me, and it was all gray at one time.
Yeah.
So we differentiated our two businesses. And that way, if we took that sign up there away,
Mhm.
we still keep the architecture, but we can still put the full sign on the side of the building as they're walking up, which also gives us more traffic because of they're at that stop sign, they get to look at it longer.
I'll tell you, I try to go by all the properties, and I drove by and I walked by, and if I were driving by, I would not see the sign on top of the awning. Because it's a very narrow street and I'm
Yes.
driving. However, the parking lot, you are in a very lucky position. That parking lot area is a wide open area.
Yes,
That
yes.
allows good visibility. That or a downward hanging, when we were talking about the axe sign that we all
Right.
noticed, or a perpendicular to the people walking
Right,
by.
right. And so we do have an arm like he was talking about that hangs out over the walkway, and which when we did the front store renovations, they took that down to do the painting, and it has been put back up.
Okay.
So we were going to put a pedestrian sign like that up there back, put the original one back up there with another sign that way to catch the walker buyers.
Right,
Yeah.
which I think actually driving would get more people even seeing that
Well,
than your upper.
that for it to be big enough for the people driving by to see, people will be smacking their heads on it as they walk under it. And we don't need liabilities like that. And then the secondary sign, of course, you can't see it in this picture, but right here there are 3 windows. There was also 3 windows above mine. Now, we covered those up when we did that on the renovations there, simply because they never get cleaned, and they just don't look very nice. But way we did it was we just covered them up, the windows are still there, so if we ever took them down, it returns it back to the original state.
Right, and so your sign would just be attached to your
Attached to
wood
that
covering.
wood, basically it's plywood that's been painted, it would go over that. And we were gonna put basically our logo or our catchphrase there, which is First Choice Jewelers. We're changing the name of the business to First Choice Jewelers, and our catchphrase is "The choice is yours." So we were gonna put "The choice is yours" up there, and then take the best watch and jewelry off completely.
I was hogging questions all the
No,
time.
no, 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 please. Anyone else have any questions? I'm sort of taken aback because I had just misinterpreted that sign entirely. And,
Mike, do you have any?
Well, I'm looking here at our guidelines, because our job is to interpret the guidelines. We don't make rules, we don't make guidelines,
Right.
our question is, hey, does this fit inside of our guidelines? I don't always agree with it. Yes, or, yay or nay on either side of it. And this doesn't seem to fit our guidelines. We have, it's not a flush mounted sign. It's not a sign that's eye level in front of the building, so it seems like we're creating a new category.
Well, it's almost gonna look.
And I think if we can imagine signs being along the front of all the awnings, it's gonna block buildings. And so if we allow one, we're gonna have to allow multiple, and then we're gonna have potentially signs all the way down the awnings.
On
which
the
is gonna
out
block-
to the edge, right?
Out to the edge, correct, which is they're gonna block the features of the building, which is the whole reason for the guidelines.
And that is why I proposed
Yeah.
not doing that and doing it on the side of the building, which would be a flush up against the building,
Right.
mounted to the building.
Is that the parking lot side?
Yes.
Stucco? Okay.
Yes, it's actually got white stucco there, and I was just mentioning to her earlier that yes.
And it's been
that-
painted right now, if I remember.
Well,
Yes,
that
yes,
white
it is.
stucco is actually breaking off at the farther
It
back
is
of the
in big
building.
chunks, yeah.
And I think it would be nice if we could get that removed, because behind that is red brick, and then going with the red brick road and the red brick in the front of the building, it would just make it more beautiful as the architectural, it is. And, but we could go over the stucco with the sign, that's not a problem. And I think that would, like I was telling her, I think we would get better visual from that, being that we could, it's gonna be the 8x4, 4x8 sign, and people are parked there, it's in their face. When they're sitting at the stop sign, they can see it, and when they're driving by, it's a bigger sign that they can see.
it might even still have the areas where Barbara Sloan's sign, when Barbara had her antique shop on that side, because she had a sign on that wall.
I think there was a sign, there was some mounting brackets that I believe I saw before. I think there's still a mounting area, there's not nothing to mount anything there now, but I think you can see where it was mounted.
Right.
Which makes the whole.
And there is room inside that architectural feature where it's painted red, to put a sign. And from the looks of it, if it's 12 feet between the poles, you've got about 10.5 feet of space inside there.
Right.
Height-wise, it might only be 2
Right.
feet. I'm not
Right,
sure how
exactly.
high,
It's maybe this
Yeah.
tall, which wouldn't fit our logo nor our sign, basically. And I think it would take up too much of the building, you know, not necessarily covered up, but it would alter the look of the building with just half a sign there. Now, if it was in the center, they would look great. But I don't want to jump over into his advertising space or take over any part of the building that would be his to use.
This is a quandary.
I'm trying to stay, keep happy friends with all my neighbors and everybody.
Can I ask a question of
Yes,
staff?
please.
We're not done with that.
Thank you,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Thank you. I know we've asked this question before, but I'm just gonna blame it on too much stuff that's happened since then. What's the, I know there's something about rewriting applications as we go. So what's the ruling on that?
Outstanding point there, Dr. Beisel. So what she's referring to is you rewriting an application or saying, you know, I'm not going to approve a 4x8 sign here, but if you move it over here, I probably would. And you have not done that. You did not redesign the applicant's request. The applicant has said, I am okay if we move this over to the side of the building. So you have the option to approve the sign on the side of the building, the 4x8, we'll just refer to them by their size, the 4x8 and then the 1x3 approximate measurements. So the applicant has changed their proposal here for one that's on the east side facing the mound parking lot. And then the one above the window or above the door, that's the 1 foot by approximately 3 foot sign. So what you see up there is no longer what's being requested because the applicant changed it based on kind of some feedback that he was hearing from you. So you did not redesign it.
I was making sure we didn't do
I
that.
think, and just logistically, it seems like that would be, you would have to have some superior bracing it just seems like that would be a wind foil. Doesn't it? I mean, am I imagining something here?
It very well could be, but that is more of
I
a
know,
structural
that's-
element and
that's
not
nothing to do
design.
with us.
I mean, it is
Absolutely.
design, but it's not our design.
Right, correct. Okay,
Well, I propose that we accept the changes as offered by the applicant to move the sign to the side of the building, for the biggest reasons that putting it there, A, is not one of our guidelines, and it blocks the building, and like the Cole sign that we saw, you can still see the architectural feature of the building through the sign. So for
Yes.
those reasons, I would recommend that we accept the changes that the applicant has requested and have him affix that sign to the east side of the building facing the parking lot.
okay, thank you.
That was really wordy.
Oh, but it was well put. And I second that motion.
Did that motion cover both?
And I'll second, I guess we know it's a discussion.
Yes.
I think we're avoiding what it would appear to almost be a freestanding sign.
Absolutely.
Because it's gonna appear like that, and so
Yes.
we're avoiding something that is considered inappropriate.
And tall freestanding isn't the guidelines, in the
Yeah,
guidelines.
and that's the way it's
so.
gonna kind of look, even though that's not really what it is, so I think this is a good option.
And to the applicant, we honestly are not trying to be difficult. We are simply trying to follow the guidelines.
No, I completely agree, and as I've stated to some other people, is I didn't particularly, after thinking about it, I didn't particularly like that design either, because of the freestanding, wet look, freestanding like that. It just doesn't look very professional like that, and it looks more professional up against the building. So I think the
I agree.
side building sign would be better.
Thank you. All in favor of passing Mike's wordy,
Do we get a second?
Yeah, she
We
said.
did.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
I missed that.
wordy but well put motion, state aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Thank you.
Chairman, you addressed one of the two sign requests.
Yes,
There's a second sign request.
that's right, the other one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the,
Thank you.
we'll call it the 1 by 3 foot,
Mhm.
which is a flush mounted in the transom area sign.
Absolutely. I second that. All in favor, state aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
And the
Alrighty.
majority business, we call that Basil said.
And I'm well familiar with that. I have a Tai Chi class, in a little bit in the yoga building, so. So I'm glad I don't have to see that often. No, I'm so tacky. We're dismissed.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Whoever, yeah, whoever you're gonna get,
Okay.